Okay, so we are live again, and this time we are going to talk about the advanced parts in the Java. So again, it's not advanced Java, but then something advanced in Java. So in the last two sessions which we did, I guess it was on Sunday. Yeah, it was on Sunday. We did two sessions, one for one in the morning and second in the evening, and then we were not able to complete the entire thing which we planned, and that's why we thought, hey, let's do it one more. And finally we're doing it. Okay, so in this video, in this live session, basically we will be doing uh, oops concept in Java. Okay, now uh, okay, so in fact the thing is, we have already covered some of the topics in the earlier session, if you remember. We have talked about classes, we have talked about objects, and then we have also seen the concept of inheritance. Okay, so in this video, in this live session, let's go ahead. Okay, so before going ahead, I just want to make sure if I'm properly audible, which I have not checked yet. I need to check that first. Okay, great. So I'm properly audible. That's very important. So I'll be also sharing my screen. We will start that in few minutes. I'm just waiting for everyone to join this session. By the time everyone joins, we can have some QA session here. Uh, okay, now this question is very interesting, and this from Sitij. I guess Sitij, you are coming from the JavaScript background. The question is, why are instance of a classes called objects? Are objects not key value pair? Yeah, that's right. So if you are from a JavaScript background, that's what we learned, right? In JavaScript, we say objects are key value pair, but that's not the thing in the real oops world, right? So see, we have two things here. One, the actual concept, and second, how that concept is implemented in a specific language. Every language has their own way of implementing oops concept, right? JavaScript has a different way of doing it. Java has a different way of doing it. Kotlin has a different way of doing it, right? So in JavaScript, we treat objects as key value pair, right? But in general world, when you talk about objects, it represents some real entity, and they are made of classes, right? So it's not always key value pair. Sorry for that. Okay, next one. In fact, let's start with the code itself. Okay, so today we'll start with objects just to give you an overview. Then we'll move towards classes. We'll talk about, in fact, object classes together. Then we'll talk about inheritance. Then we'll move towards polymorphism. So let's see how much we can cover, because we have time only till 9 p.m. Okay, because I have some other work after that. So let's see how much we can do it. So if you are enjoying this live session, hit that like button so that we can. I will get motivated to make more such videos. So let me share my screen now, and let me know if you can see my screen in the chat window. And here we go. I'm sharing my screen. Okay, perfect. So this is the code which we did last time, but we'll not be using the same code, of course. We will be changing this. We will write from scratch, okay? Okay, so where do we start? So let me remove, yeah, we have talked about encapsulation, if I'm not wrong, right? We have talked about it. But still, what I will do now is let me remove the entire code here. Since maybe you are new to this session, you might have not attended the earlier session, so we'll start from base so that everyone will be there. Okay, cool. Let's get started. So let me know if you can see my screen properly. And okay, cool. So let's start with the concept of object-oriented programming. So when you say object, what exactly it means? See, if we talk about programming, what we do in a programming per se is we try to solve the real world issues with the help of virtual world solutions. Now, when you say virtual world solution, what it means? Example, you wanted to take a cab. So nowadays we don't have to go on a road and you have to stop a cab, right? Basically, you take your mobile phone, and you can simply you can book a cab, right? Then you can also go for you want to buy something, so you don't actually go outside and buy, you buy it online. So basically everything can be done. So most of the problem can be solved with the help of virtual world solutions, right? Which is apps or softwares or websites or any web service for that matter, right? So in this case, what we will do here, in this case, what we will do is we'll try to find how do you represent the real world entities in the virtual world, and that's why we have a concept. And that's why we have a concept of objects. Everything. Example, if you talk about this mouse, this is an object. If you talk about this lens cover, this is an object. If you talk about a pen drive, it's an object. Every object will have two things. Every object will have some properties, and every object will have some methods, behaviors. So the property for this one, it's a black color pen drive. Again, next property, it's from SanDisk. Uh, I don't know the storage, maybe 64 GB, a USB-C pen drive. So these are the properties, right? The methods is you can copy data inside this, right? So it will copy data. It will also you can retrieve data, right? So those are the methods for every object. In the virtual world as well, you need to have an object which will have two things: classes and properties and methods. Now, where you will define this, and for that, what we'll do is we'll go back to our code. Now, this is where, if you want any object, basically you need to first get the properties. Okay, just a second. I guess my camera is not focusing on me. Okay, perfect. Done. Yeah, so basically what we are doing here is we want to get the object, right? Now, you can get the object with the help of a class. Now, why do we need a class? See, before manufacturing any object, example, if you talk about any phone nowadays, right? Phone is a very common example. So before manufacturing the phone, what they do is they make a phone on paper, right? They design the phone on the paper, not just the layout of the phone, but what parts will be there, what are the features of the phone, everything is mentioned on the paper. Now, with that one design, you can manufacture as many phone you want. Okay, so let's say one simple phone, one simple design, you can get thousands of phone out of it. So basically, you can go to any factory and say, hey, this is a design of the phone. I want you to manufacture, let's say, 1 million phones out of it. So one class, okay, one blueprint, you can say. So one design is one blueprint. You can say one class. So using one blueprint, you can have thousands of objects. And then how you define that blueprint, it's very simple. You can just go back to your code here. Yes, this is the extension of the first two sessions, but then if you are new, you can still attend. Shahid, do it. Okay, so there are some settings which is left. Okay, so by the time I'm doing this, I'm doing some settings on my phone. We just forgot to do one particular setting. Okay, just a second, everyone. Yeah, so what we will be doing here is we will be making sure. Hey, where is that option? I'm not able to find the option. Yes, it's there. Okay, just a second, everyone. I'm just doing a setting. Yeah, okay, cool. So what we will do is we want the object, right? So now to create the object, first you have to create a class. That's how you create a blueprint of of the object. Now, how do we do that? It's very simple. You just go here and you say class. Okay, so in this class, you can mention what exactly you want in your object. So we'll say what class I want to create. So let's say we'll say alien. Okay, and in this alien, I want to have. So let's say when we talk about a programmer, I treat programmers as aliens, right? As everyone knows. So what we will do here is we'll define some properties. Now, what properties I'm talking about? So let's say alien has a name. So we'll say string. Now the problem is, from last few days I'm working on JavaScript. Before that I was working on Python. It's been a long time I've worked on Java, so maybe somewhere I will just mix up the syntax. Of course, you will get errors. Don't worry. Yeah, the problem is this is a new string. So someone pointed out that Omkar is saying for some reasons people are not able to join this session. The thing is, this is the second event that I've created. The first event, there was something went wrong with that first event. So I've deleted the first event, and this is the second event. Okay, so every alien will have a name, right? So we'll say string str. Then every alien will have, let's say, favorite technology. So we'll say string tech. Now every alien will also have a favorite, or maybe number of experience. So we'll say int experience, right? Or maybe you want to have a laptop. Every alien will have a laptop. So in this case, I can say the laptop brand, or we can simply say laptop. Which laptop do you have? Okay, so there's one more thing. If you are saying this screen in a, so if you're getting blurred screen, that simply means the quality on your app or on your page, you have to make sure that you set the quality as 10 or 720 max, so that you will see clear. By default, nowadays YouTube is reducing the quality so that you will not get buffering. Okay, so basically these are the properties I'm talking about. So these are all the properties which we have in a particular class. Now, every class can also have some methods. Example, let's say I want to print, I want to say, hey, alien code. Okay, that's what we do, right? We write code, we make software. So I can say build project. We can say build project. And so this is a method. So how do you define a method? It's very simple. You simply mention access modifier, and then you mention the return type, which we don't want anything here. And then we are saying a method, right, which is build project. And of course, we should be building a project, but then just to keep it simple, we'll say in the method. Okay, just I want to print something there. Okay, cool. So we got properties, we got a method. The next step is very simple. You just need to create an object out of it. Now, how do you create an object and where do we do that? See, if you want to run this code, we need one. Okay, so so before going, I just want to check with everyone. Are you still seeing the screen blurred? See, if my face is blurred, that's fine because the camera is not giving me particular output. But how about the screen sharing? It is still blurred. Let me know. Okay, cool. So if you want to run this code, of course, you need to have a class which is the same as file name, which is first. And the class which has a main method should be public class. So it's a public class first. And then here we'll have a main method. And in this main, of course, I want to get the object of alien. So once you got a class, you can create multiple objects of it. How do we create an object? It's very simple. You say alien, and then you can have an object. Let's say obj equal to new alien. Now, see, if you observe this, this looks like you're creating a variable. So let's say I'm creating a simple variable here, which is int I equal to 9. Now in this case, what I'm doing is I'm creating a variable which is I, and then the value of I is 9. Now, if you see this line, there are three things you have mentioned. One is you are creating a variable, so you have a name for the variable. Then you have to mention the type of the variable, which is int. And the next thing you have to mention is the value. So 9 is a value here. In the same way, if you look at this line, we want to create the object, right? So this is an object variable, but this is of type alien, if you can see, right? So alien is a type here, same as int here. So int is a primitive type, alien is object type or the class type. But then if you want to assign the value, this is what you do. You say new alien. Now, technically, this is object, okay? Just to reiterate, this obj here is not an object. This new alien here is an object. Then the question is, if this obj is not the object, what exactly it is? The obj here is actually the object reference. So this is a reference which is pointing towards the object, okay? But the object here is new alien. Cool. Okay. So once we got the object, we can access all the properties of an object. So how many properties we have in the object? You can see we have 4 properties here. So what I will do, I will say obj. I just want to assign the values first, or maybe before even printing assigning the value, let me print the value. So I will say obj.str. So what we have is we have a class which is alien, and then in that instead of having str here, what logically it should be name, right? Every alien will have a name. So let's assign a name here. Now, what will happen if you try to print this name here? Now, you can answer that in the chat window. What will happen if I try to print the name? Because if you can see, I have not assigned any value here. Nowhere I have assigned the value to name. Let's run this code and let's see what happens. I will right click here and I will say run. And hopefully it will run and where's the output, even if it is running. Okay, so you can see we got the output is null. And that's expected, right? We got null because we have not assigned the value yet, and then we are printing it. So that's an issue. So before printing it, you have to first assign the value. See, the problem is if you got a null value, this is one of the worst thing you can do with a null value. Example, let's say we have obj.name, and then on this name, I'm trying to apply some I'm trying to perform some methods. Example, name has multiple methods. Name is a string object, right? So string itself has multiple methods. Example, one of them is length. What will happen if you try to do this? You're saying obj.name.length. So what will happen? Now you will get one of the most amazing error, which is okay. Let's see what error you get. That's right. One of my favorite error, which is null pointer exception. So basically, what we're trying to do is here, you're trying to perform an operation on a null object. In that case, it will print null pointer exception, right? Now we don't want that. We don't want null pointer exception. We want to get the length. So there you have two options basically. One, you can assign the value the moment you create this object. Second, before performing this operation, you have to check if name is null, and that's a normal check we always do. We check if obj not obj if obj dot name is equal to null. Or in fact, you should be checking if not equal to null. Then only you should fetch the length. Otherwise, don't fetch the length. In this case, if you run this code, you will not get the error. So you can see we have not got any output, but we have not even got the error. So this is one of the best way to solve or to get to avoid that null pointer exception. Okay, but since we just are into learning stage, we'll not do anything complex like that. Let's to keep it simple. I just want to fetch the name, not the length. Now, how do you assign the value? Okay, you have multiple ways of doing that. First, you can come back here and you can mention the name as, let's say, Naveen. But the problem is, do you think in the world all the aliens are Naveen? Of course not. Every one have a different name here. Example, we have Omkar, we have Anit, we have Vishal, we have Abhishek, we have Lakshman, right? So we have all these names. So this is not a best way. Yes, of course, if you just want to avoid the error, you can just put an empty string here. That should work. But this is not a best way. The next way you can do that is before printing the value, you can assign the value. So you can say obj.name and you can say Naveen here. Now, depending upon different object, let's say this is the first object we have. We can have multiple objects. For different object, you can have a different value, right? So you can say, hey, this is object one. The name is, let's say, Ajay or maybe Praveen. So you can mention whatever name you want to assign there. Now, once you assign the value, let's run this code and let's see what happens. Okay, just tell me if I have this look, is it the font still visible? Because I want to interact with you face to face, right? It looks good. Okay, so you can see we got Naveen, right? So we have assigned a value and then we also got Naveen there. Okay, this is one way. The another way is I don't want to assign the value from here. Because the problem is every variable need to be private. If you remember, if you have coming from the last session, we have done that, right? I forgot his name. We took someone, we took a volunteer on the screen in this stream basically, and then I was asking a lot of questions. So in this case, we have to make sure that all the data in your brain, okay, so you are the object and all the data is stored here. Because you can talk, you can walk, you can dance. It's all because of what you know. So we have methods as an object. We have methods, and we also have data, right? And all this data here should be yeah. It was Mayank, right? Mayank was there, right? Perfect. So all the data should be private. So in this case, make sure that you mention all your variables as private. And let's say private here as well. Now, once you make your variables private, how do you access them? So you can see we got the error. And that's where if you want to access your variables, you need to always do that with the help of some methods. And the method we have to use here is getters and setters. So getters will help you to get the values, setters will help you to set the values. Now, how do you get those values? You have to just right click here and say generate. Uh, what you want to generate getter setters, so select, and for all the variables basically, click on enter, and you can see we got getters and setters for all the variables here. So how do we access them now? So of course you should not be doing obj.name because name is a private field now. If you want to assign the value, instead of using this, we will be using this set method. So I will say obj.set name, and the name I want to set is Naveen. How do you fetch the value? You will say obj.getName. Cool. Okay, so there's a question from Dhruva. Dhruv, why private is because you don't want anyone else to access your data directly. In fact, your data is stored in your brain, right? I will not be knowing that data if you don't say or if you don't write, right? So data by default should be private. No one should be able to access it directly. It should be through methods. Now, if you are doing that, this concept is called encapsulation because you are encapsulating the data in the object. And the only way to access them is with the help of methods. Cool. Okay, so we have talked about object. We have talked about classes. We have talked about the concept of encapsulation, right? Okay, cool. So someone says, what is the question? Just went up. Yeah, so Umka says we can also use Lombok here, right? So Lombok will save time. That's right. Now, the thing is, if you are working on Kotlin, we got a special class there, which is data class, where you don't have to write getters and setters. And to achieve that in Java, we can use a library called Lombok. But then the only problem which I felt with Lombok is it will reduce your performance, compile time, not runtime, and it also adds extra library. It is not that readable for developers. Uh, so again, it's a personal choice. And for people who don't know about the Lombok, you can just go to YouTube, search for Telesco Lombok. I do have a video on Lombok. Okay. Okay, so there's a question from James, and the question is, please tell more about encapsulation and its user in the project. See, doesn't matter what project you're working with. It's not specific to one project. In general, whenever you get a class, okay, and if your class represents a real entity, example here we are talking about alien represents a real entity. You can talk about laptop. You can talk about a product which is getting shipped. Maybe you can talk about a medical records of a person. Everything, every class basically is storing data, right? Variables, properties. You have to make sure that you make that variables private so that no other class or no other methods can be able to use it directly. It should be through methods. You can in the methods you can check. Example, you want this method should be accessed only with the help of only when the user is logged in. How will you verify that? So if you have methods, you can actually verify those things before accessing data. So it's a general rule. Okay, it's a general thumb rule. Always make your instance variables as private. Okay. Cool. Okay, what does getter setters do? They assign the value. So here you can see we are assigning the value to name and we are fetching the value from the name. So that's what they do. Okay, now once you know about getter setters, we can also work with constructor. So of course we are assigning the value here, right? But then you can also assign this value with the help of a constructor. So I can get a constructor by passing all the values. Now, how do we get the constructor? You can just right click here, right click and say generate, I want a constructor which takes all the values, say enter, and you can see we got a constructor by assigning all the values. And then we can pass these values here. So here I will mention all the values. So the first value I want to mention is my name, which is Naveen. The next thing I want to mention is the technology which I'm working on. So time being, I'm working on blockchain, so I will select that. What else we have there? We have experience, so let's say 4 years, and then what else we got a laptop, so let's say I'm using now Asus. Can't even see the text, it's going beyond. Okay, so you can see I'm saying Asus here. And now if I print the name, I can just get the name, right? It should print the name. So this is working, right? But then what if I want to print all the values of the object? So that I don't want to say get name. I just want to say obj. What will happen now? If you say obj, what do you think will be the output? So by the time you answer that, we have a super chat. Thank you so much, Chris, for the super chat. So Chris says, thank you for these videos. I have been watching your content for over a year. That's great. I recently landed a job as a CS student in the college. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations. Okay, so will there be more advanced live streams, GUIs? I am planning actually for more live streams. In fact, I'm just exploring different ways I can go live, because that's what I feel now. You can actually teach more and flexibly when you are doing live sessions. So I will be doing a lot of live sessions, and please let me know if you are enjoying this. I just don't want to waste your time and my time just by teaching, and then if not, it doesn't make any sense, right? So please let me know if the live sessions are actually helpful. So you can comment that, or you can hit that like button so that I will know if these are helpful. And I'm planning to go live every Sunday. So today I'm taking a live because we left something. Tomorrow I can't go live because I have some other work. I will try to finish that, and maybe next week, next Sunday, I will try to go live on JavaScript. That's the plan. And maybe after that we'll go live on Python. Okay, so Gaurav says we are always on whenever you teach. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, cool. So once we have talked about that, let's continue with the other stuff. Now, I want to do is I just want to run this, and someone mentioned, right? Let's run this code, and you can see the moment you run this code, you will get something weird. We got alien, and then we got at the rate, and then we got some address here. What is happening? Why is printing this thing? We did this. We did the same thing with arrays. Remember when we created an array, when we tried to print the array, it printed something I and then a square bracket and then at the rate and then some address. So this number here is actually the address of the object in the memory, right? And this is the type. Okay, so alien is a type here of the object. So it is printing type, it is printing at the rate, it is printing the address. But why exactly it is printing in this format? The thing is, by default, whenever you try to print an object, every object will have a method called toString. Let me repeat. Every object in Java will have a method which is called toString. Now you might be thinking, hey, we don't even have that method, right? Example, if you see this class, we have so many methods, but then we don't have a method called toString. And the amazing thing is, you don't have to actually create this method. The thing is, every class in Java extends a class called, any guess which class it extends? Every class in Java extends a class called object. Now, what is extend means? It is inheritance. So all the properties of object class, and that's right, there is a class called object in Java. I know that's weird, but there's a class called as object. Now, this object has multiple features. So if you want to use those features, just create a class. By default, every class in Java extends the object class. So let that sink in. But till that point, we will take this super chat. And the super chat is from Sampath. Thank you so much, Sampath, for the super chat. And the question is, sir, I am looking for a job change. Your Spring Boot course helped me a lot. Thank you so much. Oh, that's great, Sampath, and all the best for the hustle you're doing for to get a job. And of course, you will get it soon. Cool. So yeah, so every class in Java extends the object class, and this method toString is actually coming from the object class. Now, how do we know that? So if you want to see the source code of any method, just press Control and click on that method. So you can see it will take you to this definition of it, and it is coming from the object class, right? Now here, what we're doing is we are achieving a concept called inheritance. So this is inheritance. So when you get the features from the earlier class, it is called inheritance. Example, if you own a car, if you own a home, if you own something, there are two chances. Either you have earned it, you bought a car by your money, or you got a car from your father's money. Ultimately, that's inheritance, right? That's how it works. Okay, so in the same way, or your parents' money, basically. So inheritance basically means you get all the things from your parent class. So this obj here is actually, or this object here is a parent class, and this alien is a child class. So child class will get all the features of the parent class. Okay, so that's why it is printing toString. And if you see the definition of toString, it says what? toString will print the name of the class, toString will print @, and then toString will print the address. Okay, how do I get that? Let me just take it down. Yeah, so toString will print the hash code here, right? So the hash code, that too in the hexa format, and that's why you see this weird thing. But what if you don't want to print that format? You want to print the data. So in this case, what you can do is you can say you can talk to your parents and say, hey, I don't want all the features. So let's say if your parents are saying we will give you a car, you say I don't want to get a car from you. I can buy my own car. So what you are doing is you are creating your own method called toString. toString is yours now. You're not taking it from the parent class. And then so you simply say public string toString, and then here you will print, or you will return something. You have to return, right? So you will return my toString. I'm just printing this so that we'll check if this works. So you can see I'm creating my own method called a toString. Okay, so this time when you call toString, it will not call the toString of the object class. It will call the method which you created. And let's see if that works. And you can see, yeah. So you can see now we are not getting it from the object class. So next time when you want to buy a car, don't buy it from your parents' money. Not even a mobile phone. Okay. So now we are getting that, right? But then you will say, hey, it's happening because you're calling toString, right? Let me not call this toString method. What I will do is I will just print object and let's see what happens. So even if you print object and you're not printing toString, it will still call my toString. So basically, this method here is hiding the feature of the object class. Of course, right, we have toString in object as well. But when you define it, it is not going to the object class. So basically, your method here is overriding the method of the string class. This method is called the method. This concept is called the method overriding. So the child class method is hiding the method of the parent class. It is called method overriding. Cool. And this concept comes under polymorphism. But why it is called polymorphism? That we'll see in some time. In fact, that we'll see after a short break. So instead of going for a break after every 45 minutes or 50 minutes, let's take a break after 30 minutes. So let's take a break and we'll come back in next 6 to 7 minutes. Okay, so I'm starting a timer of 10 minutes, but then I will come back in 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so you can just enjoy the break time. Okay, we are back from the break. Cool. So you have so what we have talked about till now is we have created the object, then we got a class, we have seen inheritance, and then I was looking at the chat window, and then there were some interesting questions which we need to answer. So I will not exactly show the questions here, but just to reform what we have, what they were discussing in the chat is. Uh, so what we will do here is, what if you have a class, let's say a class called a person, right? And let's say in this class we have certain methods or certain properties, and then alien want to extend a person class. Now, is it possible to extend a class which we created? Of course, you can extend any class. So we got a class alien here, which is extending a person class. But then, if you remember, we have also talked about this thing, which is every class in Java extends the object class. Now, see, when you have one class extending one class, that is single level inheritance. But when you have, let's say, we have one more, let's say we have class, we have class A, and then person is extending class A. So now what will happen? This is what. So if you compare these two classes, this is single level inheritance, right? But when you have multiple classes, we have class A, person class, and then alien class. This is multi-level. Now, why this level is because alien is extending person, person is extending A, which is a multi-level, right? But then what if, oh, in fact, I have mentioned that, right? Which is if one class extending two classes, what this will be called? If one class is extending two classes, it is called multiple inheritance. Okay, but then we don't have this B class, right? So let me get B class here. So we'll say class B, just to keep it simple. So we got class A, we got class B, and this then we have a person called, then we have person here, which is extending both the classes. Now, what do you think will happen? In fact, you can see on the screen, right? This is why I hate IDEs. You can actually see the error. It says class cannot extend multiple classes. That means multiple inheritance in Java is not possible. So how do we solve that? And first of all, why there's a issue? So the issue is because let's say we have this person. So what what I will do is I'll just go back here. And let's say I create an object of person object. Okay, I'm just commenting it so that I don't want to run this code. Let's imagine what is happening. So let's say we got this person object. Again, of course, I'm completing this statement, but let me say obj equal to dot dot dot. Okay. So now tell me, if I create the object which is obj of person, and if I call the method which is show. So if I say obj dot show, so tell me from which class you will get this show method. Of course, you don't have show inside person. So either you have to create show inside this person, or what if you are getting this show method from A? So let's say we have a show method from A. Now in this case, person will say, okay, I don't have show method, so I have to go up. I have to find show in my parent class. It will be either in A or in B. So you can see we have that in A. So it will simply call that from A class. But what if you have show method in both the classes, in A as well as in B? Now, in this case, if person is searching for the method from where you will get this, from A or from B. Now, this problem is called the ambiguity problem, or you can also call diamond problem. So how do you solve this ambiguity? So Java says, hey, let's remove the issue itself. Let's not support multiple inheritance to even create that issue. Clear? So basically, Java does not support multiple inheritance. because of this problem. But now you will say, when you extend a person class, okay, we have also deleted the person class. We don't want to do that. Let me just keep it as it is here, the person class. And let me remove this thing here. Okay, so when you say alien is extending a person, and every class in Java extends object class as well. So does that means we are going for multiple inheritance here? Not exactly. The thing is, whenever you extend another class, this class person is already extending the object class, right? Even if you don't mention that, it's a John Cena of Java. There, you can't say it, right? So every class in Java extends the object class. So basically, this is again a multi-level inheritance. So alien is extending a person, but person is extending object. So I hope that makes sense. So let me remove this now. Remove this one as well. Okay, cool. So now what I will do is let's go back here. So let's talk about overriding. So what we understood from overriding is when you have your own class and you are trying to override the method of the parent class, is called method overriding. Now method overriding is a part of polymorphism. Now what is polymorphism? Polymorphism means it's one thing and multiple forms. Okay, it's poly means many and morphism means forms or shapes. So what exactly it means is one thing will change the behavior based on the type you assign to it. Okay, now to explain that, what I will do is I will just simplify this code a bit. Let me remove this entire stuff from here. Let's go for a class A. Just take a bit simple. And then we got class B. Okay. And then we got, or maybe we should have a proper name to it, right? Let's say we have laptop. And then we have a desktop here. Cool. Okay, so we got a laptop and we got a desktop. And then we got a super class here, very super class, which is a computer. Now you tell me, if you have a laptop or a desktop, can you call your laptop as a computer? Of course, we do that, right? Can you call your desktop as a computer? Of course, we do that. So every laptop or desktop is a computer. So can we say laptop extends a computer? Yes, we can. We can say that. Can we say laptop extends a computer? Yes. Desktop also extends a computer. So let's do that. Okay, so everyone, I don't delete the stream. So once this is over, you will get the same stream on the channel. Okay, so now we got a computer, then we got these two things, right? Let's say in this laptop, I have a method which is public void show, and then it says in laptop, you can carry me. And then in desktop, what I will do is I will have the same method, of course. I just want to try it out. So I will say show in desktop. And then here we'll print in desktop, you can't carry me. Okay, cool. So we got these two things, right? We got these two classes. Now, how do I instantiate or how do I create object of these two classes? Can I say laptop, laptop obj or laptop lap is equal to new laptop? And of course, we can do that, right? This is one way of it. The other way is instead of creating the object of a laptop, we can create the reference of a computer. So we can say computer lap is equal to new laptop. Now you will say this, will this work? Of course, this will work because laptop is extending a computer. So you can refer this laptop object as a computer. No one will kill you for that. So the same way, you can say computer lap is equal to new laptop. The same thing can be done for the desktop. Okay. So I will time it. I will say instead of computer, I will say instead of lap, I will say com. And then we got new laptop here, right? In fact, what we can also do is, so let's say in this computer, I will say public object of computer get computer. Just observe what I'm doing. I'm just creating a simple method which is get computer, which returns a computer, and this will return, let's say, new laptop. Basically, I'm returning the object, which is laptop object. Okay, I will go back here. In fact, I will also make this method static. Now, why I'm making this method static is because normal methods, if you want to call them, you need object. Example, if you want to call show, you need to create object of laptop. Here, I don't want to get object of computer to call this method, which is get computer. So we can make this as a static method. So the moment you make it static, it will, you don't need an object to call it. So what we can do is here, we can simply say computer dot get computer. So computer dot get computer will give you the object of a computer. And then here I will say com dot show. Okay, we don't have a show method inside this is because uh, the computer don't know about the show method. So what I can do is I can just go back here and just to say that there exists a show method. I'm not printing anything here. I'm not doing any stuff. It's just that computer should know this. There is a method show that exists. So here, what I'm doing is I'm just saying computer should know com or computer should know show. So I will say show. But the question is which show it will call. So everyone in the chat window, tell me which show method it will call. So let me run this code. I hope you have answered that. And if you can run this code, you can see we got in laptop. Nowhere I have mentioned laptop, right? I'm simply saying get computer. And then it is returning the object of laptop. It is calling the method of laptop. So even if you have the reference of a computer, it is calling the method of a object. So it's not important of which class you have the reference. What's important is the implementation, which is the laptop in this case. But yes, if you change this object to desktop, now you will get the desktop object. And you can see we got desktop. Yeah, so it all depends how do you run this code. And that's why we say it's polymorphism. So it changes its behavior based on what input you give or what you pass. Cool. And this methods here, which is show method, is actually overriding the method of computer. So this concept is called method overriding. Cool. Okay, so someone says, sort of thing says, what if you say new laptop here? Again, you will get the laptop method. So it depends upon what type of method you are passing, or what type of object you are passing. Cool. So now what I will do is let's go forward and let's do something else. Okay, can you make okay, there's one more thing. There's one more method which is called a final method or final keyword. Let's try to understand first final. What is final here? So what I will do is I will just come back here and I will create a final variable. So let's say the final variable is final int a value, and if you assign the value which is 7. Now once you make your variable final, and if you try to change the value of it, when you say value plus plus, you will get the error. It says cannot assign a value to a final variable. So basically the moment you use final here, this will make it as a constant. That means you can't change the value of it. Okay. Now final has multiple uses. One is if you use it with the variables, it will make your variable as constant. Now this is same as const in JavaScript, if you know JavaScript, but yeah, we use final here. So let me reiterate. When we use final with a variable, it makes your it makes your variable as a constant. We can also use final with a class. Let's see what happens when you use final with a class. So if you go back here, and if you make this computer as final, you can see we got error here. If you make your class final, no other class can extend it. You can see we will get the error. It says cannot inherit from a final computer. So if you use final with a variable, it will make your variable constant. If you use final with the help of, if you use final with a class, it will make your class non-inheritable. That means no one can inherit it. What if you use final with the method? If you use final with a method, no one can override it. You can see we got the errors for the show method. So this show is actually trying to override this show here. So if you make it final, no one can override. Okay. So there's a question from Shivam, and the question is, what's the difference between final and static final? It's actually very simple. Static simply means you can access that property or method directly from the class name. Final simply mention that you can't change the value of it. Now let's say if you make this method, or if you make this method as or a variable final static. Let me just create a variable here. So I'll say final static price. Of course, price should change, right? What is something you can keep it constant? Let's say RAM. I don't want anyone to upgrade the RAM, and by default the RAM value is 16. Now this RAM value is final and static both. Of course, you can actually make this normal variable, no final, no static. That means if you want to access this RAM, you need to first create the object of computer. But now we'll say, hey, I don't want to create the object. I can make it static, which simply means you can directly access this value RAM from the computer class. But then you can still change the value of it. You can go anywhere and you can say, hey, okay, let me just remove final from here so that we can do something. I can directly jump anywhere and say computer dot ram plus plus. I can change the value of it. You know why I can change the value? It's because it is not final yet. Now, if you want no one should able to change the value, then simply say final, and that should work. I hope that answers your question. Cool. So that was the method overriding and method and inheritance. What else we have talked about? Polymorphism. In fact, we have one more. Can we have two methods in the same class with different name, different in fact the same name but different parameters? Example, I can say public void show, but if you do that, if you have two public void show, it will not work. There will be error, right? Because there will be confusion which one you are referring here. So I can have a different properties or different parameters. So this will be method overloading. So we have method overriding and method overloading, two different concepts. Okay, so finally, what's the exact definition of the polymorphism? So polymorphism means one thing, multiple behaviors. It has two types. One is method overloading and method overriding. Method overriding, also called dynamic polymorphism, and method overloading is also called the static polymorphism. Again, to understand that, we'll have to take a bigger session, right? We can take one entire session of 8 hours on polymorphism. It's that big topic. But just to keep it simple, that's how it works. Now, if you go ahead, let's talk about something else. Let me remove this part and let's talk about this show here. Now, when you have this show method, don't you think we are creating a method here, which is show, is doing nothing, right? So in this case, what you should be doing is if you have a method which if you're not defining anything, just declare it. So how do you declare? You simply say a semicolon. And the way you can do that by making it as an abstract. So if you can make a abstract method, you can declare it. But there's an error. It says abstract method in non-abstract class. But yes, if you have an abstract method, you have to make sure that it belongs to an abstract class. So class has to be abstract. So abstract methods belongs to abstract class. Now, what is abstract method? If you just want to declare the method, you don't want to define it, you will say abstract. And then you have to also make your class abstract. Okay. Now the only thing is you can't instantiate computer. Example, I cannot come here and say computer com1 equal to new computer. Once you make your class abstract, you can't create the object of it. Because if I do that, you got an error there. You can't create the object of an abstract class. Any questions? Cool. I can see the chat window. There are a lot of questions. Let me just pick up one. A question from question Abu. Why are we instantiating computer object like this? There are different way of instantiating it. I'm basically following a factory pattern, but I don't want to use new keyword. But again, just for the example, I've used that. You can still say a new laptop that works. So yeah, so basically what we're doing here is we are not creating the object of a computer. We can't do that, okay, because that's an abstract class. So abstract class are normally used to create a high level scenario of the implementation. Example, if instead of saying laptop or desktop every time you can say computer. So if you really think, the computer term itself is abstract concept, right? No one buys a computer. You always buy a laptop, you always buy a desktop, you always buy a mobile phone. You never buy a computer. But then you refer to everything as a computer. You look at your laptop and say that's a computer. You look at your mobile phone and that you say that's a computer. So it's just an abstract concept. Okay, question from Ravi Kishore. Will there be a session tomorrow? No, I don't have a plan to have a lengthy session. Maybe I can go live to answer your questions, but not a topic-wise session tomorrow. Maybe it will take some time for me to actually create a schedule where we can follow it. Okay, so what is abstract class? Abstract class is a class which you cannot instantiate that class. Okay, and then it can have abstract methods. Now, when I say it can have abstract methods, that means you can have abstract class without any abstract methods. That perfectly works. Now, there's a question from Rahul. Can I make a class abstract final? No. The reason is you are creating an abstract class so that it will get extended in future. Of course, right? You are making it abstract so that someone else will implement it. But the moment you make it final, no one can extend it. So that's oxymoron, right? One thing you're saying it will be final, and then you're saying it is abstract. So that those are two opposite things, basically. Okay. Anything else? Cool. This looks cool, right? Now, when you have a class, okay, let me just remove this one as well. We don't want to use that anymore. And let me remove this part as well. Okay, so now we know that computer is abstract class and you can't instantiate it. Now, when you have a class which only has abstract methods, so instead of using abstract method, we can actually use a concept called interface. So look at this class computer. It only has abstract method. So instead of using this, we can make it as an interface. Now, the amazing thing is if you make a class interface, you don't have to mention public abstract. You simply mention void show. And instead of making it abstract class, you can make it interface. Cool. So you say computer, interface computer, void show. So difference between abstract class and interface is an interface by default, all the methods are abstract. See, things got changed in Java 8. It's a bit different. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, the base difference is in interface, you can't define methods. And in abstract class, you can have a method declaration and definition both. Yeah, right. And the only thing is, instead of extending it, you implement the interface. Now, why do you implement is because this method is only declared here, right? And here we are defining it. So that's why we say it's implements. But the amazing thing is you can have multiple interfaces. Example, I can say interface uh, interface movable. So we got an interface movable, and let me say move. So I can have a laptop, and one laptop can implement multiple interfaces. So it will give you error with classes, but when you have the methods, it will have. So when you have interfaces, you can have one class implementing multiple interfaces. The only thing is you have to define all the methods. Example, you can see we have move here, and we are not defining it. So just click here and say implement methods. It will take it. Cool. Any questions? Okay, so if you're new to sessions, just hit that like button so that I will know you are enjoying this type of live sessions. I'm just checking if anyone. Yeah, hit that like button, everyone, if you're enjoying this type of sessions. Okay, cool. And now let's move towards something else. Now, there's a question: what is decorator? Now, the thing is, that's what happens when you learn multiple languages. In Java, we don't have anything called decorator, right? We have annotations. In Python, we call them as decorators. But we don't have enough time to talk about annotations and stuff. So yeah, that's about OOPS. Again, we have taken a crash course on OOPS here. Now let's move towards the next concept, which is encapsulation. So before going for not encapsulation, exception handling. So before going for exception handling, let's take a short break of 5 minutes and then we'll continue. So I'm starting a timer of 10 minutes, but we'll start in 5 minutes. Don't worry. Okay, great. So in the earlier session, we have talked about, or in fact, before the break, we have talked about uh, inheritance, overriding, polymorphism, right? Now, of course, we can't do everything, the entire OOPS concept in 1 hour. So we took a crash course of it. Now it's time to move to the next topic, which is exception handling. Now the thing is, every time you write a code, you will make mistakes. Okay, that's how the programming world works, right? You write a code, you will find some bugs, and you will face errors, and then you have to solve the errors. Okay, but then the thing is, when you write the code, you will get errors. Of course, we have talked about it. There are three types of errors you will get. The first type of error you will get is compile time errors. Then we have logical errors, and then we have runtime errors. So let me just write those things here. Uh, Let me say. So basically, you have compile time errors. Then we have runtime errors, and then we have logical errors. Now, what exactly compile time error means? This is your syntactical errors which you make. Okay, so every time you write a wrong syntax, example, you missed semicolon or you misspelled main, that's syntax error. The next thing is you have a runtime error. So we'll talk about logical error first. So syntax means you are making some coding mistake, right? Syntactical mistakes. Logical means you are creating a code which is running. Okay, there's no problem in the running, but then the output which you're getting is 2 + 2 is 5. Of course, that's wrong. It might be right in some condition, but this is a logical error where you're not getting the error, but the output, the logic is wrong. And then you have runtime errors. Now, runtime errors means it's running, there's no compile time error, you are getting the right output, but then because of some user input or because of maybe you ask the user to open a file from the desktop and then the file is not available, the web page is not available, that's your runtime error. It dependent on something or some user input which is wrong, the application will stop in between. That's runtime error. Okay. uh, so what do you think which is the best one, or which is the best error to solve? Syntactical, it is one of the easiest way to solve errors. I mean, of course, if you make a mistake in the code while compiling, you will get the error. So syntactical error is something you can solve in the development stage. Logical errors can be solved when you are testing the application, right? So when you build the application, don't just give your application to the client, you have to test the application. Now there are multiple ways of testing the application. You can do you will be doing unit testing, manual testing, then integration testing. There are so many testing options available. After doing all the tests, you will find, hey, the logic, there were some issues with the logic, and now we have solved it. But what about runtime errors? Now, runtime is not something you will get on developer side. It is mostly on the user side. Okay, so you have made the application, it's running on the client side, and then because of some client mistake, it's not running. Okay, so the application will stop in between. We don't want that. We want to handle those exceptions, or we have to handle those errors. Okay, how do you handle runtime errors? With the help of exception handling. Okay, it's very important for developers. Okay, so let's try that. Let's try that. The most famous error we are going for here is dividing a number by 0. Let's try that. Let's try that. So I will say int I is equal to 9, and then I'm trying to print I divide by 0. Let's see what happens. And we got our first exception. You can see that we got an exception. It's here. It says arithmetic exception. Now you will say, of course, right? It's a wrong thing. Why you are dividing a number by 0? I'm doing it. Maybe I'm asking the user for the input, and user says 0. I'm not responsible for it. User says 0, and then it is giving you error. And then you will say, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with it. But the problem is you are actually stopping the application in between. Let me prove that. Let me print by here just to see what is happening. The moment you print by, and when you run this code, what do you think? Will it print by? Type in the chat window. And you can see we got error. There's no by here. It's because the moment you got the exception, it will jump out of the loop. It will stop the execution. It will jump out of the block and it will stop the execution. We don't want that. We want to continue the execution. Even if you get the error, that's fine. That's something you can skip and you can jump to the next line. Or maybe you have to find a way to solve that error. You can say, hey user, you have given the input as 0, which is wrong. Give me a positive value, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever value you want to assign, but not 0. How do we do that? So you have to handle the exception first. So you have to say, okay, how do you handle the exception? So whatever statement you have which you think is critical, you can put that in a separate block. And then you say, hey, try to execute it. Okay, try to execute it. I'm not sure will it work, but try to execute. If it works, that's great. What if it doesn't work? Then catch the error. Because if it will not work, it will throw the exception. Okay. So the moment your statement throws the exception, you have to catch it. Okay, and then with that catch, you can print the error. So I can say, but how will you catch it? What's the way of catching it? Okay, so we'll do that. But before that, I have a question here which says, which IDE I'm using? I'm using IntelliJ IDE. IntelliJ IDE. You can see on the top of the screen here. This is the IDE I'm using. Okay, so Himanshu says wasting everybody's time. Oh, thank you so much, Himanshu, for being here on the channel for that one view. Okay, that's right. Most of the IDEs actually give you these things, but not for every error. Okay. So there are two types of exceptions which we can handle. One is hold on. Yeah, there are two types of exceptions where IDE will give you prompt, and some of the places IDE will not give you the prompt. So you have to make sure that you follow that. Cool. Example: when you use buffer reader, your IDE will ask you to have try catch. Okay. So here we actually understand the concept. Not always tech GAN. I just look for, so the moment I get some free time, I just look at the chat window and then I try to answer that. Cool. So we got a catch here, and we'll say exception E. Okay. Now what is exception E is? The moment you got the error, the moment you throw the exception, you have to catch it, right? But then you have to catch in a way what is thrown. Example, if you are playing cricket, right? So you will wear the gloves of, as a keeper, you will wear cricket gloves, right? And so if you're playing football, if you're a keeper there, you will wear a football gloves. In the same way, what object is thrown here, you have to catch with that object. So the object is exception, so you have to catch exception. Now, once you got exception here, you will print. Let's print E as it is. Let's print the exception. Now you will say, okay, we are getting the exception, we are printing it, but what's the use of it? The use is, if you run this code, of course you will get the exception, and it is printing the exception here. But you can see here we are also getting by. That means it is not stopping the execution. That's important. Right. So this is try catch, right? So try will try to execute the block. Catch will catch the exception. It will print the error. But then you don't have to always say E. You can also print. You can't divide a number by 0. I know it's hiding it. Let me just drag the code here. And now let's try to run this code. Let's see what happens. Now, of course, it will not print arithmetic exception. Now it will print the error itself, right? So this is how you can handle the exception. But do you have only one exception? And if you can see, we were getting the error exception, which is not exception. We were getting arithmetic exception, right? So it is actually arithmetic exception. So you can be very specific here, which is arithmetic exception. And if you run this code, you can see we got it. In fact, I'm not printing arithmetic, but that's fine. So instead of saying exception, you can be very specific about arithmetic exception here. But then why exception was working? It's because we have so many exceptions here. We can see we have arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception extends runtime exceptions. Runtime exception extends exception. So even if you say arithmetic exception, that's the exception. We have talked about it, right? Inheritance. Now, likewise, you can do multiple things. Example, let's say I have a string here. So let's say string name is equal to null. Okay, I'm assigning a null value. And then on this null, I'm performing some operation. So I will say name dot length. So I'm trying to find a length of a string, but if you can say that's a null value, right? How will it will work now? Let's run. So you got the error. Okay, that's awesome. You got the error. But the error we got is our favorite error, which is null pointer exception, right? But then we have not got by. You know why? Oh, that was rhyming. It's because you are throwing exception, which is null pointer exception, and we are not accepting it here. We are saying arithmetic. That means it will only handle arithmetic exception, not null pointer exception. In that case, one try can have multiple catch block. And this time we can say null pointer exception. So basically one catch can have multiple, so one try can have multiple catch block. So here I can say null object. Okay, TechGAN says, by the way, arithmetic exception is runtime, but it doesn't extend on. Yeah, we can do that as well. We can do that as well. We can also say runtime. But the problem is there are so many exceptions which are runtime. So even if you get an exception which is not arithmetic, but it is some kind of runtime exception, still it will say you cannot divide a number by 0. And that's not the case, right? It is only for arithmetic which we are printing here. So it's always better to specify the exact exception. Okay, Abhishek says, what's the hierarchy? In fact, you can get this on Google. You can just search for images exception hierarchy, and you will get the entire hierarchy there. Okay, someone says he tried it and he got infinity. Oh, that's weird. Maybe you are doing it in JavaScript, because in JavaScript you get infinity. I'm not sure if the latest version of Java supports that. Okay, now what is null object I'm printing here is because it is null, right? Name is null here, and then I'm trying to find a length. So you can say null object. Of course, you can print any message you want. That's right. I was searching for this word. So exception can be of two types: checked and unchecked exceptions. And for checked exceptions, it will give you a prompt. Example, when you try to use buffer editor, when you try to use something which your compiler knows will give the exception, it will say check the exception. It's compulsory to use try catch there. Okay. Okay. Premchand says हिंदी में बोलो सर, हिंदी का अलग से चैनल है which is Tajisko Live. वहाँ हम जाएंगे live हिंदी में. Okay, Abhishek says, what if you have all the exception available? So in this case, it will always go for the specific one. So what if you have, so I guess that's your question, Abhishek. What if you also have a runtime exception here, which is E, and then you're printing runtime. So which one it will go for? Will it go for arithmetic or it will go for runtime? Now the problem is the null pointer exception is also extending a runtime exception, and you have to follow the hierarchy. The child class will always be on top. Okay, so which one it will go for? So if you get null pointer exception, will it go for null object or will it go for runtime? So it always go for specific thing, which is null pointer exception in this case. Right. Okay, so Sai Pratap Reddy says, how can we define user-defined exception? That's very simple. You just create your own class and extend an exception. And that's what we have done here, right? This arithmetic exception extends runtime exception. So you create your own class, let's say psi exception, which extends runtime exception. That you got your own exception. Simple stuff, right? That's right, custom exceptions. Yes, this video will be available after this session, don't worry. Cool. In fact, if you have two exceptions, example, let's say we got these two exceptions, and I want to print the same message, and the same message here is error. Okay, I know that that's not something we will be doing that. But if you say error, and for both the exception, I want the same message, what you can do is you can put a pipe here, and you can print null pointer exception. So for both the exception, we got the same message. If you just want to save your time. Cool. And now let's say I don't want to print by here. I want to print by inside the try block. Now tell me, if I run this code, will it print by? So if I run this code, you can see it will not print by. I hope it will not print by. Yeah. So you can see we are not getting by. You know why? It's because the moment you execute this statement, it will give you error and it will jump to catch block. We don't want that. We want to print it, right? We want to say, yeah, we want to print by. So in this case, what we can do is we can copy it and we can also print by in the catch block. Now the advantage is if you have by in both the scenarios, even if you get the exception or not, it will print by. Let's try now. So if you run this code, you can see we got by. So instead of typing this on both the thing, because see, this will execute it only when everything is good. Catch will execute only when you got the exception. But what if you want to do something where irrespective if you got the exception or not, I want to print it, so you can use a finally block. Now finally block is there to do something even if you don't want to, even if you don't get the exception or if you get the exception. So even if you execute the try block or the catch block, finally will get executed. And that's why it says finally. Irrespective will there be exception or not. Oof. And you can see we got the output which is by. Cool. So one try can have multiple catch block only and only one finally block. Oh, that's awesome. Saksham loves the JavaScript series. Oh, yes, more videos are on the way. The next video is in the process. It's getting edited there. And that's why data redundancy is a crime. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we got a point from Sri Hari. Finally, block is not executed in system.exit in try. That's right. Because the moment you say system.exit, it will directly jump out of the execution. And it's not a good idea to do that. Never use system.exit. Okay, what is the symbol pipe? It's an or symbol. So either you get this exception or you get this exception. In that case, you will print error. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we were also supposed to talk about threads, right? But we don't have enough time to talk about threads now. So what we will do is in the next session, we'll do threads, and maybe I will take some session in between. So I will give you the updates. Now, where you will get all the updates, so we also have our Telegram channel. So if you go to Telegram and if you search for Telesco Official, Search, go to Telescope, sorry, go to Telegram application. Is it Telegram app? Yeah, Telegram, and search for Telescope official. That's where I share the updates. So before going live, I will update on Telescope official. Okay, now for next few minutes, let's discuss. Let's have some questions and answers. So let me share the link. If you have any questions, you can ask live. I've shared the link. You can join. Okay, I've shared the link. You can join the live streaming and you can ask questions. Okay, Prem says, please make a live JavaScript. Yeah, that's a plan next week, next Sunday. I mean, not tomorrow. The Sunday after that, we'll have a live streaming on Java or JavaScript. Okay, who want to be in the stream? Wave your hand. Okay, we got Pawan here. They
Okay,
can't
Prem
hear you.
says, let's make a
Hello.
Live JavaScript. Yeah, that's a plan next week, next Sunday.
Hello.
So they can't hear you. Just a second. I just want to change the settings. Yeah. Hey, hi, Pawan. Can you hear me? Okay, I still can't hear you. What's wrong? Is it something from my side? Okay. Sorry, Pawan, I can't still hear you. Anyone can hear Pawan there? Let me know in the chat window if you can hear Pawan so that I will know if it is my issue. Let me try someone else. We got, hey, what's your name? It's Akar. Hey, hi, you are on stream, Akar67. Okay, he just went off. Not planned to be here. Hey, hi, Sudhir.
Sir, hi sir. Good evening.
Good evening. So it sounds like you are on a bike.
Hi sir.
There's a motor running, there's bike running. I'm not sure.
No sir, it's my laptop actually.
So
No sir,
you're
my
from
laptop fan.
laptop fan. Okay, that's very loud. Is it a gaming machine?
Yes sir, have it. Latest.
Yeah. That's an awesome sound. That
Sir,
gives me the motivation
I'm
to talk more.
hearing your voice so late. After you're speaking 30 seconds, I will be able to hear your voice. Many
So
of
I
my
can't
friends
hear
are telling same.
you. Just a second. I can't hear you properly. Something into settings. Or let's do one thing. Let's connect tomorrow. I will do with I will take my settings with me. Let's do a live session tomorrow itself. We can have a QS session. I'm not able to hear anyone properly. So well, maybe we can do a live session tomorrow afternoon or in the evening itself. We can have a QS session, and the Sunday after that we'll do a session on JavaScript. So what do you want, JavaScript or Java? Make so not JavaScript and Python in the chat window. Mention that. Timing would be mostly in the evening, maybe 7, 6, or 7. Collection framework, yes, we'll do threads and collection framework in somewhere in the mid of the week. Again, I will give you update in the Telegram channel, so make sure that you join that channel, Telegram, so that you will get the updates. So we are actually doing a lot of fun in the Telegram app. Okay, so Java. So everyone says Java. We'll do a Java session, but then apart from Java, do you want me to cover JavaScript or Python? Okay, JavaScript has a huge demand, so let's do that. Let's do that. Python is also there. Maybe we'll do next week. We'll do Python. Sorry, JavaScript, and then after that we'll do Python. Okay, question from Hemant. Can you make a video in handling projects for corporate fresher? Let me try. Let me try. See, go to Telegram and search for Telesco Official. There's only one channel which has more than 4,000 members. Yeah, so everyone will join tomorrow. You can ask me question live here. So that is from this session. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button and see you in the next live session. Bye-bye. And you can also follow the social media link here. I'm available on Instagram, on YouTube. Of course, you are watching this on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Bye-bye, everyone.